Hey everybody, it's Tuesday.
And welcome to this week's episode of Hook, Line, and Striker.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily. And we are glad to be back with you guys here tonight.
Yeah, we took a week off because we were in the car traveling till about midnight last Tuesday. But we got down there and down to Missouri, and it was fun.
That's true. It was fun. The drive for us actually was not so bad. We did go to Springfield. It is in Missouri. And we were there for the Bass Pro Shop Fishing World Fair.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, and it was pretty funny because we were wearing some of our striker stuff, and we may have seen one or two striker hoodies the first day of the fair, but everybody was pretty jealous of us with the striker gear we had on.
And, that's a really funny point because, a lot of us up here in the north or even Canada, we know these ice suits, that is something that Striker is just known for. And, we talk all the time about how we meet people at shows and they laugh. They think that Striker is such a huge company. And it is so crazy to go, down south. I guess Missouri isn't all that far. But, a lot of our gear was new compared to what almost everybody else was wearing. So, we were at a fair where we could see what all the options were, but I am still glad I had the gear that I did.
Hey Ray, it was kind of crazy to get down, almost to Arkansas and have it be 30 degrees and rainy for 2 days. But no, it was a good chance to show the range of all the striker stuff. We had the Denali suit out
Because it was cold and rainy.
Yeah, we got there and they were like squeegeeing out booths. It was crazy.
Literally.
So, I think we got a couple inches of rain and then some snow and
saw seriously every single weather that there is while we were there. So, I've never been to Missouri before. I feel like I've seen quite a bit of it now.
But yeah, that Denali suit was pretty awesome. It was my first time being able to wear it because we were just able to get our hands on our suits just recently, and it was awesome. Quite honestly, like for being such like a lightweight jacket and like not super bulky but being insulated, like I'm excited to put it to the test with some walleye fishing this weekend.
That is absolutely true. Because, I driving around where we are at in Wisconsin, I actually did still see some ice today, but have not seen ice with shorelines that are good enough for me to feel like I could cross that bridge and get out there. I know a little bit north of us, one of our good friends, Ryan Slummy, he's one of those ice junkies. He is out there and he is still catching fish. But he made a really great point in a post earlier today that a lot of the fish that he is finding are starting to move a little bit shallower, which is unfortunately where that ice is degrading. So as ice fishermen, it's so easy to get caught up in that mindset of like, if I could just get out to the middle of that ice block, because in those middle of the lake, we can still see ice floating around. And I know that some of that has good depth, but that might not even be where fish are at.
Yeah. So it might be worth just throwing a bobber from shore sometimes, You never know. Get the ladder out, Tony says.
Oh my gosh. Some of the shorelines were degraded beyond a ladder. When they're that far gone, that's why we look towards the river. So where we are at in Wisconsin, that's something that we are lucky enough to have kind of available to us.
Yep. We've been keeping an eye on all the posts and stuff and talking with some friends around the area, and it seems like the run is going pretty well. If you haven't checked it out, or aren't from the area, please check out the Wolf River Cam. That is super fun to watch, even if you're not in the area. And if you are, you can learn a whole bunch. The exact locations of the cameras aren't disclosed, but general locations are, so you can kind of track the fish as they move up. And for those of us that like to just follow the viewing of the sturgeon spawn, since that's my favorite, I take a look, and then you can kind of plan your trip. If you you want to come out towards the Green Bay area, the Oshkosh area, and see some sturgeon this spring, keep an eye on that camera, and then you probably have another 2 weeks or so. What is Emily reading over here?
Tony is saying, don't underestimate a 40-foot ladder. How's your balance? I'm laughing because my balance is straight terrible. Like, I might need 2 ladders and like, who knows?
There we go. The pier had 300 boats on Sunday. That sounds crazy.
But what you were talking about is, preparing for a trip up here. So like people are talking about, there is a lot of people coming for those fishing opportunities. And, as many people come in boats, there's also that many shore fishermen. So, we all hear about those very typical spots that people are going to, especially around the Green Bay area. But one of the most important things is make sure that you have your up-to-date fishing license. Because first of all, it's time. It's that time. The other thing is make sure that you know the regulation of where you are at, because some of those regulations have changed, in the last few years. So if you are traveling to a destination, it's different from your home waters. Just make sure you know that as well. With that, I've seen actually a lot of big fish get pulled up. And so that is what makes it hard to not get excited about.
Yeah. So I just posted the link for the Wolf River Cam. For those of you that haven't checked it out, it's super fun to watch. The guy will probably have him on our other show here pretty soon, but he does this pretty much by himself, and so there's a few ads, but it is free to watch. It's just really fun. I'll put it on at work and just kind of keep an eye on it while I work and stuff. It's very cool.
That is absolutely true. I was trying to look up the date of when we have Wolf River Cam guy on, but to be honest, I'm gonna have to dig farther then. So I hold that thought, and maybe I'll come up with that at the end. Otherwise, just stay tuned to Crappie Junction and places like that, because we advertise that, and that'll be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that kind of got us on this path of talking about the river is that rain gear. And the other thing I thought I should mention is one of the other favorites this time of the year, making that transition from that cold weather into boating season. I got an email this week, maybe was it even today, from Striker, that actually the Trekker suits are like 40% off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with code Trekker40. Trekker. So that Trekker suit is really fabulous. It has a lot of the benefits of that ice fishing suit because it is windproof. It is great for being in the boat, that flexibility, but it is also a float suit. So, the rain gear is a little bit different because it is advertised for more of those downpours. That Trekker suit is great for that snow and slush if you're still having to traverse, some crazy boat landings and stuff. But otherwise, that Trekker suit and the rain gear are both really comfortable for sitting in the boat.
Mm-hmm. So I think tonight what we're going to do is, we kind of, since we were on the road all week last week, we were super busy. I think we're going to just kind of talk about the transition from winter to spring and talk a little bit about your gear storage. And then, and then we can touch on, if anybody has questions about, the Denali suit or the Guardian hoodie. If you haven't checked that out, that's new for this year. We got to test both of those out. It was, I think the one morning was like 29 degrees when we got up and we had the Denali suits out, and then 2 days later it was 70 degrees. So, we got to break out the Guardians. So we got to wear those for long days, running around the festival down there. So, it was good stuff. So.
Another actually really cool thing that I would love to bring up, one of the things about us traveling is we got to bump into some people that we do not normally get to, because we were outside of our typical home range. So shout out to Chris Emery. I don't actually expect you to be watching because you have a million things going on in your life. But a fabulous crappie angler that we have talked to on the show once, if not more than that, I guess. But, I know he has some tournaments coming up. He's got some fishing opportunities coming up. In October, we were talking to also at the fair, Mr. Crappie. He has that expo that's going to be coming up in Branson, Missouri. And that is a huge fishing, angling, crappie tournament. So anybody interested in that crappie tournament, let us know. I would love to know how that's going to go this year.
Yeah. And I mean, the crappie circuits are really fun to watch. We don't hear a bunch about it up here, But if you do a little bit of digging, if you look into our pro Chris Emery, he runs a couple of those tournaments. But it is really fun. It's a whole different level of competition, because those guys are. It's different than bass fishing, because those guys are like sitting at the landings, talking to each other, showing each other what they're doing, and it's just a really fun bunch of people to watch. So like if you haven't checked out those those big crappie tournaments, that's definitely something I would. Yeah, so getting back on track. So we're talking about transitioning over your winter stuff for your spring stuff. One thing that I like to touch on is washing your bibs and your jacket. Some of you guys probably fish a lot more than me and have to wash your stuff more than once. Mine, it gets pretty dirty by the end of this season, but I usually try and hold it to one wash a year. Not because you can't wash it more, you can wash it as much as you want. But I just like to know that it's completely clean when I put it away. There's some, I can look up the stuff too. There's some water spray that you can put, or some water repellent spray that you can add additional waterproofing before you put it in the tub to put away. And, that's it. You just wash it according to the directions on the tag, dry it.
One of the things that we always talk about is, I feel like I'm clearly the one that does the laundry in the family.
Well, you're looking at me like I should say something.
Yeah, one of the things that you should absolutely do is be using laundry detergent that is like a free and clear. I know that there's a specific brand that has that exact title. That's not the one that you need to buy. Just you don't want all the scents or additives or anything crazy or flowery
Always
like that.
Looking at me strangely.
Because just with that suit, you just want something that will get it a clean and not kind of add in any way. Because one of the things about the water repellentness is that, like, that's not really a term, but you know what I mean, is actually how clean that material is. So in the past, a lot of people really kind of put off all of that washing. And this is especially true for the rain gear. But if you get too much of that fish slime or like whatever it is, too much dirt, too much whatever, just on your bibs, on that fabric, it actually reduces the waterproof ability of that material. So I'm not totally a scientist, and I wish I could explain more in depth of why that's the case. But if you are starting to notice that, like, for example, like the knees or whatever of your suit or something, it's not quite what it was. One of my first questions is, when is the last time that you washed it? Because if you have too much buildup on there, that's something that will affect that. So putting it in that washer with like a free and clear detergent. The other things that we say is make sure that the zippers are closed, the snaps are closed, just to kind of hold that suit together so it's not like whipping around or anything crazy in there. And we do all love our line cutter devices, and those are awesome, and make sure to get it back onto your suit. But it is a good idea just to take that off before you wash it, because honestly, it's not probably going to do all that much to your suit, but it is better when it's, again, moving around in there. You don't want it to like nick it up. Those line cutters just are sharp devices. And if that fabric just like gets in there, you just want to avoid any of that extra wear and tear if you can. So that line cutter device, take it off. After your wash cycle, I would do something, I don't know, like normal or gentle or something like that, but hang dry it. Oh, actually, no, that's not true. That's what we always used to do. And then we talked to Barry.
Yeah.
And then he said,
and you missed a step.
What was it?
You didn't clean out your pockets. Now you have crusty minnows in your pocket.
Oh my God, because I always find plastics in our wash machine. I'm like, that could not be good. That could not be good. Oh my God. Yeah, I do.
First, check the pockets. 2, grab your line cutter thing off there. 3, secure all the zippers and all the open stuff. 4, put it in the wash, and then follow Emily's instructions.
And we always used to say hang dry, but actually if you put it in on like a light heat into the dryer, that's something that actually was suggested by Barry the last time that you talked to him. So he does a lot of different stuff at Stryker. I wish I knew his actual title. I want to say like product designer. I don't, but now I feel like I'm butchering it. So sorry, Barry, and sorry, Stryker. I should know that. But it was a great tip to use that low dryer heat, and you should be good to go. In the past, I have just hung dry it and it's gone just fine. So I do know Josh was talking about if you are looking to add additional waterproof to your products, then he did put a link up there and it looks like it's posting now. So if it hasn't come across your comments yet, it will soon. But
oh, dang it.
Oh, on our end, it says that there's an error, so you might not see it and we will get it up there. Well, maybe it did show up. Who knows? We'll look into that, but on our end, we'll figure it out. So what else about suits?
No, I mean, once you get it dried, I think one of the big things is just maintaining the cleanliness of it. And so kind of to do that.
Thank you, everyone.
I like to put ours either hang them up in the closet. And if you have some pant hangers, right, the ones with the little notches in the shoulders, if you put the little the buckles behind the notch, so then all the weight is forward, then you'll save your straps. So don't hang your bibs by your straps, hang it by that little buckle. I don't know if that's
a very hard thing to visualize. So we could always get ours and show you, but we don't have to, because I think one of the other things that you suggested is a pants hanger. And what Josh is ultimately, I think, getting to is that if you hang it from those elastic straps, I don't hear people wearing those out very often, but I just don't like to hang it from that, because why, again, put that wear and tear if you don't have to. So you had said pant hangers, and if you do have those things with the clips, that's actually a really great way to even hang that. So I would recommend that as well.
Yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't hurt it to just get folded up and put into a tote and, put up with the rest of your ice fishing stuff. It'll keep all the critters away from it, and, and then it'll keep all the dust off of it. And it'll be nice when you go back in there. You could even throw a dryer sheet or two in there so it smells nice when you pull it out. It'll be, that's kind of where I'm at with the storage.
Speaking of keeping critters out, when I think about that, I always think about the stories that come next year when people are pulling shacks out. So I'm going to ask this as a question before I start talking about it, but what do you guys do at home to, keep your shack safe or clean or mouse or rodent free or bug free or whatever? What do you do at the end of the season to make sure it's otherwise not gross? So if you have tips about that, put that in the comments, because I would love to see what you've got going on, because I have to admit, I have not started that process because we were actually fishing pretty recently.
Yeah, we were out last Sunday and found some really good ice. So that was pretty fun. Stayed on the bluegill bite. But yeah, I don't know. What else did you... Wow.
Let's go find ice Sunday. I know there's some still around. That is the thing.
Well, Justin, let's get together.
But either way, it is the end of that season. So, what do I still use my shack for? Like if it is windy, that's something, because sometimes that bite, you just got to be careful and watch your jig and all of that. If it's, a little delicate bite. But otherwise, gosh, usually the weather's warming up. This is a great time if you can still get on the ice. But a lot of people are putting shacks away. And with those first few nice days, one of the best things to do is just open them up and air them out.
Yeah. So once we get a little bit warmer here, it's good just to have everything open up. Emily and I have turned into shack collectors. So now we have 6 shacks between the two of us. And that's from all the way from my college days to when we first started dating till now. So we just can't bring ourselves to sell any of our shacks. We just like to keep buying new ones.
They have a different purpose. They're like tools.
So but that is important, before you put them into long-term storage, dry everything out. Like I just put up, Tony said he puts lots and lots of dryer sheets and he does a midsummer check. That's probably pretty good. And it also reminds you to do little things like, for us, we're going to have to do our midsummer check, and we are doing some mods to our monster hub, like adding your little puck things. So that would be a lot easier when it's warm and dry out versus cold and wet out.
But they don't know what any of that means.
No, but I'm just saying, if you're going to do some mods, if you have stuff to fix, if all that stuff, that's a good time during that midsummer check to get all that, pull your stuff out, get all those mods and stuff done. We all have that little bit of time on a weekend. Maybe we don't want to go fishing, and we want to smoke something in the smoker instead. You got 12 hours while something's smoking, so do a little bit of ice fishing mods.
Ice fishing mods. But again, that's another great place that while you are opening up those shacks, to check those pockets. So it's funny that Josh mentioned that for laundry, because it's always the shack that I think about that, because you'd hate to open it up next year and find, whatever bait that was shoved in whatever pocket, or, oh, my pocket knife that I thought all summer was missing, and here it is. You never know what is going to be in those pockets. But one of the things that's going to make for successful storage is having it lay right in, in this case, if we're talking about a hub, that it lays right in that bag. So if you have anything bulky that you left in there, or, the bottom was really frozen and you tossed it in kind of a funky way, to lay it out, to lay it flat, to put it away in a nice organized way, that is one thing that is going to help it as well.
Mm-hmm. Tony's bringing up a good point. There is a pretty cool show that's right at the beginning of the fall. And so start your mods in August and have it ready for the Trick Your Trap show. That is a very cool show. I've only been to it a handful of times, but every time I go, there's something a little different, and they're all really cool. So that's a great point. If you want to bring in, if you're really going to get into the mods, maybe you can get it into that show it off.
The other thing that's probably a really fun thing is, when you set it up, and it is like a lot like a tent, it is a tent, So for those people out there that have kids, especially, that's something that's really easy for them to get excited about. If you can have them camp in the yard for a night and not have to worry about it, but also get them excited about ice fishing at the same time. That's going to be kind of a fun thing to do together.
Mm-hmm.
A few
hey,
people checking in. So hello to all of you guys. Tony's going to be at the event this year. Yeah. So if you guys know of events coming up, always let us know what that is. But otherwise, we are talking about cleaning up from ice fishing. So can't believe it is that time of the year.
Yeah. Yep. So the other thing I just wanted to, so we talked about your suits. We talked about your shacks. Now I'm going to touch on something like rods. So I had to put our snowmobile back into our garage, and I have approximately a half an inch of clearance between any one point in my wall in my garage to fit all of our ice fishing stuff in around a camper and the rest of our fishing stuff. And so I had to pull all of our stuff out of the garage to get the snowmobile in and then pile it all on top. But what I did find was I found our trout stuff that still had the egg sacs on it. And there was other cumulative things sitting in the bottom of that bucket. And that just reminded me to go through and clean up all the rest of our stuff that we weren't going to be using. We still have a couple things out. You don't want to, something like we get out with Justin and have that one last ice hurrah. We have a couple of rods ready, but the rest of it, I cut those egg sacs off. I took the leaders off of those things. Did you leave the dog outside?
I didn't let her out. Did you leave the dog outside?
Well, somebody left the dog outside.
Josh is over here talking about cleaning up gross stuff. Gosh, I honestly didn't even know that we left the sacks on for the trout. That's kind of gross and funny. But, one of the things that happened that day, it was one of those times where the wind came in really strong and it got really super cold. And that's how it goes. So, I am looking forward to some of these boating days coming up. And that's going to be awesome. But I don't know where Josh was going with cleaning up all of his stuff. But the other thing I was going to actually bring up is storing electronics. That is always kind of a big piece of the puzzle for people, because electronics these days, isn't just your graph. So you do have your graph, you do have your camera. I have a power box. That's all. That's all the amped lithium batteries. And so one of the things, and my electric auger, my Razor auger. One of the things that I actually had learned last year and always try to do a good job at is to leave the batteries, the lithium power, at like half power if you're going to store them.
Yeah, all the lithium batteries, no matter what make or model, it is recommended to store that stuff at 50% or as close to it as you can. You got to think of it kind of like a plastic or like a balloon, right? So if you keep it blown up and then you leave it blown up for a long time and then you deflate it, it's kind of stretched out. That's kind of like what a lithium battery is. You keep the charge in there like full capacity all the time without using it. It can stretch and then contract, that's fine. But then when you leave it stretched out and then you take it down, it's going to lose probably a little bit of capacity, and they'll last for quite a long time, but you're going to make it last a whole lot longer if you store it at that 50% and then charge it before you go the first time next season.
And with things like my power box, that's really easy because if I need to, reduce some of that power, that's something that's easy to do. To be honest, I gotta say with my auger, that's something that I just always hope to leave right in the end, but I don't even know where that's at. So just don't leave it on the charger.
Oh, the auger's in the pile with the rest of everything.
Oh no, I know where the auger's at. I just don't know the battery power.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure where the battery power is.
But, that is a really great point where a lot of these things do even cross seasons. So one of the things that we mentioned, well, what I was going to mention, actually, hold that. You can actually use your, if you have like a Vexilar, you can even use that on the boat, especially in summer and those fish, if they're out in deep flats or something, bluegills roaming mud beds or whatever, like you can definitely throw that down there. And that's a really fun way to learn those graphs, right?
Yeah, it is a fun way, and it does, it doesn't even have to be deep water. It does really well in shallow water, and it's just like ice fishing where, when you're trying to look through the weeds, you get a little bit better definition, with your Vexilar than you do with your, your traditional sonar, because it gets so much returns that the Vexilar doesn't. You can tune it better. And especially in the summertime when you have bigger baits, you can really turn that power down and, get out of the density of the weeds, but still keep that bigger jig on there just slightly. And the fish will show up. It is a fun tool to use in the summer.
The other thing that I was going to mention, though, that crosses seasons, and this one's a little bit more easy to imagine, but your aquaview. So if you have that underwater camera, that's something that people a lot of times think is just for ice season, but it is definitely for open water as well. And actually, this was kind of fun because we got this question a lot, being down south, and especially in places where, we met people that don't get ice at all.
Yeah. So, well, and to that fact, we talked with Ott Defoe. If you're not familiar with Ott Defoe, he fishes the MLF. He does a few Bassmaster stuff. Just really cool to follow. He has a show called Hunt for Monster Bass, and where all he does is try and catch big ones all times a year. Some of them, sometimes he's like breaking ice with his boat, but he's been using aquaview since he started fishing, and he uses it throughout his tournaments. And so we got to talk to him a little bit about that because, we're not tournament anglers of any sort. So it was hard for me to imagine how you would use it as a bass angler, because you see all the bass guys and they're like going a million miles an hour and this and that. And he was telling us how he uses it a lot pre-fishing, and where you use that aquaview camera to verify the spots that you think have fish, and then you go back and you verify those spots, and then you can cross out the ones that don't or put them on a different tier. So you check the ones that did have fish the day before, and then you go to your second tier one. So it was pretty fun to get to chat with somebody that doesn't use it primarily for ice fishing.
The thing that was important for that was that it's not a replacement to your graph, it's an accent too. So when you're talking about verifying fish, we have graphs. It's not about knowing if there's fish there. But let's say, for example, you are a bass tournament angler, but you get, just off the weed beds and there's a whole pile of fish there, but you put the camera down and lo and behold, it's walleye. So, that might be great. They might be nice fish or whatever. But, what we mean by verifying fish is that it's the fish that you are looking for. And that's, again, something that reminds us of ice fishing season, because, you might drop down on a pile of fish, but you put the camera down there and they're all like bluegills and crappies, and they're like so cute, and that's awesome, and they're fun to watch in the camera, especially when there's so many of them. But finding the fish that you are fishing for is a big key there.
Yep, absolutely.
The other thing that we were talking about with the cameras, and this is going to be actually really fun coming up this time of the year, because there's a lot that is changing in the ecosystem. So, again, back to that winter, you put that camera down. There's not so much, in my opinion, there's not a huge range of forage around for the fish. There might be a few options, and depending on where you are, if you move spots, but in the spring, there's so many different types of bugs and minnows and crayfish and frogs and this and that and everything that are all hatching, and everything starts really small and grows up. And so to be able to go and look and see what those fish are eating, what is the forage in the system? Is there something that's very plentiful and something that maybe is preferred that's not around as much? So that's something that you can definitely use that camera for.
Yeah. So getting back to like winter transition, that was a great.
Transition out. Now I'm talking.
You tangent.
I'm forward thinking. Yeah. I'm like, we're putting away our ice stuff, and now I'm open water, like straight on till morning.
Yeah, that was quite the detour we took there. But just make sure.
But that's the thing. Some of it you don't have to put away.
That's true, and that's what we were chatting about. The stuff you do put away, you store at 50% if it has a lithium battery. And then the few other items, just know that you don't have to put it away for all summer. Just, monitor it as the season goes on. I was talking about cleaning up your rods, making sure all the hooks are either taken off or, put into a area where they're safe for storage, so you can put stuff away. I think this year, personally, I'm going to take our reels off, and I'll store the reels separately from the rods.
Why are you choosing that?
I think one thing that does, is that it makes us check the drag on each of the rods when we go to string them back up. And B, you're able to put your rods flat, make sure that even if you move the cases around, that you don't have any of the spring bobbers under load, when the case rattles around and the reels move. Just keeping our rods and stuff that we've either, spent some good money on or that we've built, keep them nice. And then the reels, just go over the reels. It's easier when they're off the rod to kind of clean them up, make sure that they're in good condition for next year, and just kind of make sure that everything's in good order.
I'm leaving mine together. One of the things that I've found is that I have a lot of those reel bands, and those are awesome. And so I do always check those when I'm fishing, making sure that there is still enough band left in, elastic left in the band. And I do always carry a few with me for extras, just in case, worst case scenario, something were to break. But one of the things I found is that they're kind of tough to remove, and honestly, I just hate doing that. So I don't know. I know that my line is pretty good, and I'm going to keep checking that into next year. But to be honest, I might leave mine together and hope for the best. So I guess that's a funny thing.
Well, there you guys go. What school?
Yeah.
What school do you guys go with? Do you keep your stuff all wrapped up, or do you take it apart and clean it up and make it all nice?
people out there that just kind of throw their stuff in the bucket and like hope for the best. And,
That's true.
you know, I mean, one of the things that you do want to consider is that if you do have rods that are just hanging out in your garage, like how much humidity is it? Like, is it directly in the sun? You know, fishing line does react to sun and conditions and, you know, mono dries out super easily. I mean, there's all these different, each line is a little bit different, you know, whatever you have, just make sure that, you know, especially going into next year, that it's the condition that you want it. So again, a big piece of that is leaving it nice this year.
Yeah. Yep. So, you know, now you got your bibs put away, you got your shacks and stuff all squared away. Electronics are all at 50% if they're lithium and they're put away. Now you got your rods squared away. So what do we have left?
Well, tackle and plastics, I guess, right? Like your tackle boxes.
Yeah. So I think that being said, I think all of that just goes into my summer box. I have one big pocket on the side of my Magnum top shelf that I just throw all of my ice jig boxes into so I can use them all summer. And well, my plastic duffel bag goes with me everywhere I go, except I don't sleep with it yet.
Yeah. And part of that though is because we are pan fishermen. So, you know, there is a lot of that stuff that we were using on the ice that's good for, you know, early spring, put it under a bobber, or, you know, summer when fish go deep again and then you want to get down to where they're at, or, you know, whatever that looks like. A lot of those plastics still work in that open water season. There are a lot of people though that, you know, if you're bass, if you're walleye, if you're other, you know, there's a whole lot of other sport out there. And so again, I think one of those things that you need to do is look and make sure, like, especially if you have those clear, like Plano boxes and stuff that everyone uses, make sure that you didn't put things away like wet and icy. Because if things are not dried out, your hooks can rust, and that is a terrible thing to come into again next year. So, you know, we're talking about setting out your shacks and stuff, airing all that out. And this is a great time again to be putting, you know, those other boxes out there, having them open. If you have a dog round, you know, you can close your little shack and leave your stuff inside, let it all air out. You'll be good to go, you know. But, you know, you want to make sure again that all of those things are in that right condition so you can get back to it next year.
Yeah. So Terry's asking us if we would leave our rods in the rod box or not. I'll let you take this one since I took the first one and I was wrong.
And you were wrong. No, that's the thing, is everybody does it a little bit different.
Yeah.
And that's why all of these
Absolutely.
questions are good.
Yeah.
Me personally, the reason I have a rod box is to help store them successfully. And honestly, this off season is a huge part of that. It depends on what kind of a rod case you have. If you're like nervous to leave it in there for some reason, or maybe if it's like a soft case and then it doesn't have good stability, like if you're storing it in a way that you're not confident, then I would definitely check that out. I mean, some people take their rods out and store them like in their house, in their basement. And by all means, if you have the way or the time or the means or all that rod storage, like, go for it. But my goal is to leave everything in the best condition as possible with no bait or anything attached. And I do leave that in my rod box.
Yeah, I think, Terry, for me, we've been running those Lakewood ice rod cases, and they keep everything like pressed in so well. I think for me, I'm going to be taking my reels off and I'm making sure that all my rods are straight and supported. And if I can keep them in that case, I think it'll just make them last longer. I don't see any reason why you can't hang them on the wall, as long as you have a good width between the supports, if that makes any sense. So you put the butt of your rod down on the base, and as long as your support for the tip isn't too far up where you get that bow in your rod, because you don't want to store it like that, especially don't store it like that in the garage. But I think you can safely have them out like that, and that would be perfectly fine.
And that in itself is a really great tip. And I feel like we've kind of mentioned it, but it's worth saying it on its own. Like if you have rods, especially any of these rods with spring bobbers or sensitive tips or any of these things, we all know when we're leaving the ice, what we do is that, you hook it up somewhere, and a lot of people, they reel it up tight enough so that, there's enough tension that your hook doesn't come out, because you don't want to be traveling and having loose hooks and all of that. Cool. But that is the reason that I have a rod case, in part because you don't want to leave that bend and that tension in the rods. So again, if you're that kind of person and you're like, all this storage stuff is too much work for me, cool. You make that choice, but you are going to have a better rod, kind of more what you're used to, more like when you bought it, if you don't leave that permanent bend all year.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So just as long as you just make sure that you don't have a big load, you don't have your rod under load during the off season, and that you have some way to keep it moderately protected, just from accidental bumps and this and that. Emily and I have a lot of fishing things, and just keeping them in the Lakewood cases just makes it easy to like stack on, it's a space saver because they're square, they stack really nice, they won't get bumped. Yeah, so however you do it, you can have an otter, one of the hard otter cases, the eagle claw cases, those cases, you can store them in there if you want. But like Emily said, make sure all of those kind of cases are dried out, so you don't get any of that, you don't have a bunch of moisture in there. Yeah.
But I mean, I guess other than that, you were kind of going through the checklist, and we talked about shacks and suits and electronics and gear and augers and all of those great things. If you guys can think of things that we didn't talk about, feel free to put that in the comments and we can still chat about that. But there is something else that I'm thinking of that's great to do during this time of the season.
What's that?
This is the greatest time to be getting out, even in the backyard, and practice casting. And that's one other thing. We were talking a little bit about the World Fishing Fair. And, honestly, like most expos, there are just times late in the evening where things get a little bit quiet because people don't realize that the event is open until 9 p.m. And so, we even got our first experiences with, well, you haven't, for me it was, but for baitcaster, and just that kind of rod, that style of fishing and all of that. I'm very versed in panfish and all of that, but get out there. If you have something you want to try fly fishing, you never know what that is for you, because for each of us, our angling goals are different going into this open water season. Either way, though, one of the things that helps us be successful in those situations is being able to hit the marks and the spots and whatever that we're seeing and thinking of. So in this case, get out there in your backyard and start casting at things. Get your kids out there, whatever those, even if your mark is like a kiddie pool, whatever it is that you still have out there from last year, if you put out something like, a coffee can, whatever that is for you, get out there and make sure that you start, practicing and getting the kids excited, so that when you are in a situation, when you can be on fish, you are going to be ready for that.
Yeah. Well, and not only is it just fun to go outside and get your casting legs back underneath you, but it'll save you some money too in the long run, or some work in my case, so I don't have to pour as many jigs because they're stuck in trees.
You lose as many as I do.
Yeah, I never said that. That was all you.
Oh my gosh. So at this point in the evening, we are starting to look forward to what's coming up. So we are going to be talking a lot of open water. I'm not sure if we even still have striker staff that are still on ice.
Well, yeah, we do. Clayton Schick is up there catching pike. He's gonna be ice fishing till June. At this rate.
Oh my gosh. Go take a trip up there, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, if you haven't, you should go check out Clayton's latest video. He makes purple crush soda pike. If you're interested in that. It was interesting.
Either way, though, we have a lot of exciting guests coming up, and a lot of great fish talk coming up, and all that kind of stuff. If you guys have specific tactics or fishing styles or regions or things that you want to hear more about, let us know what that is. Put that in the comments, because we would love to start lining up shows on those things as well.
Yeah, and if you have any ideas on like how you'd want, maybe there's like a panel striker pro staff that you'd like to have talk about a topic, or anything like that. Just let us know, and maybe we'll take some time this summer and try and spice up the show a little bit.
Cool. So with that, we loved having everyone here with us tonight. We love being able to talk about these topics. And as always, looking forward to next week's edition of Hook, Line, and Striker.
Night, everybody.